How the do you write so many books so fast? I think...
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing.
In 2011, right after A Dance with Dragons was released, George Martin said that the last two books would be a bit quicker to write than this one. Considering that there was a 6-year gap between Dance with Dragons and the previous book, A Feast for Crows, it would mean that The Winds of Winter should have been published by 2017. However, here we are in the middle of 2024 and there's still no release date in sight. In fact, in one of his latest interviews, Martin revealed that he has only completed about 75% of the book. We all know that George Martin has always been known for being a slow writer, but it's been 13 years since the last book, and fans are wondering what's taking so long with The Winds of Winter. During that time, he had a role as an executive producer on Game of Thrones, wrote gigantic books about the world of Westeros, and also involved in other projects like Elden Ring. So, instead of working on these projects, why doesn't he just finish his magnum opus that made him super famous and turned him into one of the greatest authors of our time? Has he lost interest in the books? Or has he hit a dead end and can't figure out where to go next? Or is he just too busy with enjoying his fortune and having a good time? Let's take a closer look. To answer these questions, first we need to talk about Martin's writing style, because Martin has always been more of a gardener type of writer. What I mean is, gardeners tend to write without a detailed plan. They mostly rely on their imagination to guide the story and characters. It's like planting a seed and seeing how it grows. From my own experience as a reader and writer, I've noticed that writers who lean heavily on this gardening approach can face challenges down the line. They usually start strong because they have lots of freedom to explore and create, but as the story progresses and choices are made, they can feel trapped by the paths they've taken. They can't easily go back or make major changes without feeling forced or unnatural. And let me tell you, this can be really frustrating for gardeners. In Martin's case, even if he has a general idea of the characters and plot, as time went on with tons of characters and multiple ongoing plot lines, it's likely he ran into some pretty big problems, and these aren't easy problems to solve. Just think about it. You've got all these POV characters who need to meet up and interact, they have loads of information to share, and all of this has to happen on a timeline that makes sense. Plus, the story needs to pick up its pace dramatically. There are tons of plot lines that need to be resolved in the next 2 novels, and we're not talking small stuff here. For example, the Others, Daenerys invading Westeros, the Dorne plot, the Northern plot, the reveal of Jon Snow's parentage, and even all those minor plots. And when you consider that he wanted to skip ahead about 5 years in the story, all his problems make even more sense. He actually wanted to jump past Dany's time in Meereen and Arya's training in Braavos and write the important parts afterwards. In fact, he tried that approach for a long time, but when he decided it didn't work for him, he scrapped that idea and decided to write the story in a more traditional way. But still, after reading his other books, especially Fever Dream, it's evident that when it comes to wrapping things up, he seems to struggle. Even in his supposedly finished works, he tends to leave loose ends and abandon certain ideas and plot lines. It's like he got used to writing for TV where you just keep going until the network cancel your work, and I think he never got over that mindset. It's also worth noting that Martin began the series back in 1991, so it's been about 30 years since he started. Over that time, he must have revised and rewritten his work countless times. Hundreds of pages probably ended up in the trash, likely making him feel like he was wasting his time. I mean, imagine spending so much of your life with these characters and their story only to find yourself unable to finish it. So it's possible that Martin has lost some of his initial passion for them, and he struggles to care about their fates. Actually, we can see a glimpse of this in A Feast for Crows, which is quite different from the first 3 books, or in Dance with Dragons with all those new characters and points of view. At that point, it seems Martin was more invested in these fresh elements than in the characters from the earlier books. This makes sense because for writers like Martin, starting new stories is often more exciting than continuing established ones. So this also might explain why he's been focusing on his new projects. As I mentioned earlier, he's been very productive since A Dance with Dragons, just not on The Winds of Winter. I can totally empathize with him chasing quicker and easier wins when The Winds of Winter is by far the most intimidating and difficult project he's working on. There is also a chance that he was really intimidated after seeing how HBO's ending for Game of Thrones turned out to be a disaster. It probably made him realize that if he couldn't finish the books properly, most of the fans would be even more disappointed. Maybe that's why he's constantly revising The Winds of Winter, going back and making changes to chapters he wrote years ago. Because we all know that the expectations are incredibly high, and he's likely feeling the weight of that. At the end of the day, George Martin is a writer who achieved his dreams and garnered immense acclaim even before finishing his magnum opus. Like it or not, he is widely regarded as one of the greatest fantasy authors of all time. Now he can bring his imaginary worlds to life through multi-million-dollar adaptations. So why does he keep writing, especially when fewer people seem to be reading these days and there are so many other ways to consume media? I mean, writing a book series like A Song of Ice and Fire takes serious effort and discipline. He has to sit and write for hours, staring at a blank page, trying to make the story work and aiming for an ending that will satisfy millions of fans. That's a huge commitment, especially for a 75-year-old millionaire author, and it requires mostly giving up the rest of his life. So while this is the case, considering Martin hasn't even started writing A Dream of Spring at the age of 75, that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about the series' future. We might see The Winds of Winter in the next couple of years, but I am sure that we will never see A Dream of Spring. I mean, I know, it's frustrating. We all have invested time in this series and we want to see how it ends. But even at this point, there's nothing we can do except respect the author's process. After all, this is his story and he will finish it when he's ready. Constantly asking him where the book is or even harassing him online won't make things go any faster. As much as I hate the saying, it's true. It will be done when it's done. But I really hope it's soon. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a comment, give a like, and click to subscribe. Your support will greatly help the mysterious algorithm notices me. And if you want to support me personally, you can join the channel by using the join button. See you next time.